go. So we are being recorded. So welcome. What I'm recording, by the way, is what you see on the presentation screen, my audio, and any audio from the desktop. So you're not actually being recorded. Your images are not being recorded, and neither is what you see in the chat. What's being recorded is what you see up here on the screen, which you probably gathered if you watched yesterday's recordings. All right, so here's what we're going over today. We're actually going to do AutoCAD. Woohoo! After all of that stuff, we're going to do some AutoCAD. We're going to do some workspace setup. And there is a pretty good video on it. It lasts maybe 5 to 7 minutes. I don't remember. And it really does it. But I'm going to go through it. Take about 20 or 30 minutes, and then I'll do it as if I were going to do it for the submittal template. So I'll do a bunch of stuff and talk about it, and then I'll take about 5 minutes to do it for the submittal template. And at that point, we'll be able to do any questions and answers. In the highlights class at 1 o'clock, if there aren't very many questions on this, I'll do a little bit of prep work for the drawing work that we're going to do tomorrow. We just kind of dive right in and start drawing lines, but I can give you a little bit more about that in the highlights class if we don't have too many questions on the workspace setup. All right, so here we go. I'm also gonna show you, here I am in, sorry, I didn't remember if I had turned on my recording, and I had. So this is what VMware looks like, and there are a few things. I'm using the web version. I usually try to teach in the most basic version of something that I can do, so that I'm well aware of difficulties students might run into. So some of the things that you see me do, if you've got the downloadable version of VMware, you don't have to do all this, some of this stuff. And if you have AutoCAD installed on your computer, some of these things that we do, you only have to do once and it will be remembered. But since I'm working on VMware, every time I get in, I have to reset. And I don't mind that. It doesn't take too long, and it's good practice. So here I am. I'm in the Design Tech Lab virtual computer, and I see that I've got Adobe, I've got AutoCAD, I've got another really good program called Fusion 360. I actually like Inventor a little bit better, but Fusion has something called generative design, which is like, oh my gosh, it's really cool. I've got some Autodesk recap stuff. That's for drone and point cloud work. I've got Revit, Repetier. So I've got a bunch of stuff, but I always get myself set up with Adobe because I print to PDF a lot, and so I want to get signed in. So every time I get into VMware, I have to sign in. Now you would use your W number at apps.losrios.edu, but I have to use this one, and it'll eventually send you to the single sign-on page. And it does not remember you. These computers are virtual. As soon as you log off, it totally forgets about you. So down at the bottom, I can see that I've got this open. And sometimes I'll come up here and turn off. This gets confusing to me. So I'm going to turn off my bookmarks bar. And it just cleans it up just a little bit more for me. Okay, and I'll get rid of that one too. All right, so I'm a little bit more cleaned up. So once I've got that, I have to be able to save my files. So I've got to log in to Google Drive. Now, like I said, you don't have to do this if you're working on your own computer with AutoCAD. It'll just store it to whatever file you want. But I'm doing this as if I were doing it with a Chromebook or a remote access system. And I find out that it works very well. And so I've got a folder called 301, Summer 301, and I can get my week 1 practice work ready. And you can see I've got a syllabus copy already started. Not a syllabus, sorry. A submittal template already started, ready to go in here. And I can put any files that I use in here now. So I'm almost set. I've got AutoCAD, I've got Adobe. I've got my Google Drive up and running. So now I need AutoCAD. So I'll just click on AutoCAD. And we've got this set up just like right out of the box. We have made zero really refinements to it. There are many, many ways that you can set up AutoCAD to start up in such a way that it's just set and ready to go exactly the way you like it. That's interesting. I don't need that. And we like you to just practice getting it set up, so that when you are working for somebody, you're familiar with it. You'll only have to do it once for them. So here we go. I'm going to minimize that. Autodesk is coming up, and we're almost set. I'm going to have to move there. Hold on a sec. Go. A little bit easier for me to work. And here we go. And so I'm going to tell you a few things about what Autodesk looks like when it first comes up. Okay, so you're going to see, first of all, it's got a dark screen. Some people like that. I actually don't like to draw on a dark screen. Some people do. We get to change that. You can see up at the top up here, you see what are called ribbons. So this is the home ribbon. And you can put all sorts, you can set these up how you want, but we're taking it right out of the box. There's something called a user interface control, and you can change all this stuff if you want, but we use it right out of the box. So there's a home ribbon that has a lot of stuff about drawing and modifying and annotations. This is pretty much what you need if you're just going to do some basic shape drawing work. If you're going to get things from other places, other AutoCAD blocks, images, underlays, you can bring in PDFs, you can bring in data. There's a lot of things you can do. You can set your location. That's all on the Insert tab. And if you really have to be careful about how you're writing, text size and font and precision and dimension, styles, everybody dimensions with a different style. Architects have a style. Interior designers have a style. Mechanical has a style. So you can set up different styles. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff with annotations. Parametric is really cool, and you'll get into that in other classes, but it allows you to keep things together with parameters. This thing is twice that size. This thing is a third of that size. This thing is always hooked to the middle. There's some stuff on views, some basic, here's your user interface that I was telling you about. And here's how you output. You can plot, you can export, you can do lots of things. And so that's basically what we've got. And these express tools are really cool. They're just little programs that people have made, how to do text along an arc, how to convert MText, align spaces. Super Hatch is really cool. So there's just a lot of things to do. We, in our class, are mostly going to live on the home ribbon because this is an introductory class, and that's where we're going to introduce things. So those are your control ribbons. You can also add a standard menu bar. This is the old-time menu bar. You can see it looks a lot the same, but it's got things in just slightly different patterns. Okay, so you can add those up there if you want. Here are your main controls, and underneath the big letter A is where you do all of your main work. Open your file work, import and export and save and publish and print and drawing utilities and all that other kind of stuff. And then there's something called options, which is it going to come up for me? There it is. Look at all these things that you can set in AutoCAD. It's like, oh my gosh, you can set this up to kind of do whatever you want, and you can save it and put it on a USB if you want. So that's all under the big letter A. Your drawing area is this big stuff in the middle, and you can have a number of different drawings open at once. You can have drawing 1, drawing 2, drawing 3, and each drawing has a model. That's where your object of your design goes. And then they've got layouts, and layouts are like pieces of paper that show your work, and different industries use them differently. In mechanical industry, all of your dimensions and your notes and anything you write goes on the layout, and only the actual object line goes in the model. In architecture, some do it that way, but some architects still just throw everything in the model and they put everything all over the place. It's really kind of weird. We'll go into that more, but you can find them up at the top by hovering, or you can find them in the lower left. So right now we're in the model. If I click on this layout tab, you see I go to a piece of paper and I see inside my square, that's called a viewport, I see a part of my model. Okay, and I can have as many of these on one piece of paper as I want, and I can change the size of my paper however I want. Okay, I've got all these choices for different sizes of paper and plotters and things like that. So you don't really have to worry about that. We're going to mostly, for the first 2 to 3 weeks, work entirely in model space. And then in week 3, we'll jump in to show you how to present what you drew on a layout. And then you'll get to practice that in weeks 4, 5, and 6. Okay? So that's what you've got. You've got a model where all of your drawing object goes. If it's a house, the walls and the roof and the windows go there. If it's gear, the gear teeth and the spindle goes here. If it's landscaping, the hardscape and everything goes here. And usually in the layout is where you do all of your typing. You do that on the layout. You see there I've done some work and it does not show up in here. And that's a nice thing. It keeps your drawing clean and lets you annotate your drawing somewhere else. So those are some cool things down here at the bottom, and you can move this around. Sometimes I move it. Sometimes I'll put it on the top. This is your command line. I can just start typing stuff, and it'll either show up in what's called the dynamic input box, or if I have my dynamic input set differently, now I have to find it. If I turn it off, if I start typing, it shows up on the command line. The command line is really important. It talks to you all the time. So if I do a P-line command and I start somewhere, it all of a sudden tells me about a whole bunch of options that I might have. So it's really important to keep your eye on the command line. If you don't like the command line, there's this thing called dynamic input, and then you can do a lot of that stuff shows up. The command line still shows up here, but a lot of it shows up on the screen for you. I didn't learn with that. I still use the command line, and I don't use dynamic input a lot. But it really is a shortcut. So if you start out using it and you're familiar with it, I think you'll like it. So, so there's the command line, and you can move it around, and you can show more commands. If I can get this to work here, hold on. Sometimes in this VMware, it doesn't grab and catch really well. I'm not quite able to catch that to put more lines on it, but we'll show that another time. You see over here, that's something called the Nav Cube that tells you what you're looking at and where north, south, east, and west are. And I can change how I'm looking at my model. I'm not actually changing the model. Let me go ahead and just do something here. I'll put in a rectangle here. So you can see if I change it, it changes my view of it. It doesn't actually change the thing itself. Okay? And AutoCAD, when we're doing just regular old drafting, always works in the top view. If I look at it like this, you see it's really flat. It really is flat. If I look at it from the front, it's flat. So we're going to start out the semester just flat in the top view. So let's go over that all again. We've got ribbons. We've got the big A that gives you a whole bunch of drawing utilities and import and export. We've got the command line. We've got the ability to do different drawings. And we've got model space. That's where you draw. We've got layouts where often you'll put your annotations and look at different parts of your drawing. As an example, again, I'll draw a circle here, and I'll draw 2 circles over here. When I come here, I can look at 1 circle, or I can just look at my 2 circles. So I can look at part of a drawing. And if I want to see them separately, I can make a new viewport and see each one of these separately. So that's the purpose of Paperspace, and we're not going to work with that for a while. We've got model and layout tabs. We have view cubes. We've got working with customization tabs that let you do things that you want to do. And we've got different workspaces. So that's sort of a very, very brief, quick overview of the workspace and how it operates. So there's a few things that I want to show you about it. One is that we're working in 2D drafting. There's a tiny little gear, a settings gear down in the lower right. We're going to be working in drafting and annotation most of the time. But as soon as you want to make something 3D, you need to go into 3D modeling. If you're working on your own computer and want to save these, you can give it your own name. And then in your workspace settings, you can click this box to automatically save changes. So then when you change these customization tabs and the display options, it will save them for you. That does not work on VMware because we erase all this as soon as you log out. It will not remember. Okay, so there's a little bit. Now I want to talk a little bit about using the mouse. I'm using the mouse and you can see my cursor move around on the screen. I can change the size of the cursor, but I'm not going to do that yet. You'll also see that everything in AutoCAD is what's called a vector, which means it's got a position and a direction to the position. So the center of this thing is at an X, Y position. And if I draw a line from one circle to the center of another circle, it's really got a start point, an X and Y dimension for the start point, and then it's a length and a direction. That's how AutoCAD becomes very efficient. With 4 numbers, it can totally describe that line versus counting a tons of little dots or things like that. So AutoCAD works off of XY coordinates. So that thing has a point. And if I look at the properties, it's starting at X of 14.498 and Y of 9.343. And it's got an end point. Now, inside of AutoCAD, it doesn't know that end point. It calculates it. Okay? It really knows the length and the direction. That's what AutoCAD knows. It knows the length and the angle it's drawn at. So AutoCAD doesn't really hold this line in it. It holds a start point, a length, and an angle. So 4 little bits of information. And every time you open an AutoCAD drawing, its graphics card, its graphics generator, basically draws the line. That's how AutoCAD works. That's why you always see this little X and Y icon so that you can tell where you are. Sometimes that doesn't matter. If you're doing survey, it certainly matters. If you're doing architecture, it matters. And if you're drawing this to work on a milling machine or a lathe, those all work with X and Y, and so do 3D printers. So it's good to start thinking about where things are, counting from 0, 0, counting in the X direction and the Y direction to get to a spot. That's how AutoCAD sort of works. And so some people like to have a grid to help them count. Okay, let's say I want to draw. I'm going to close this up. If I want to draw from the corner of that grid to the corner of that grid, and it looks like I got it pretty close, right? Until I zoom in and I go, oh, well, that wasn't close at all. See how that spot isn't really on the corner? Well, that could be close enough. Okay, it could be that the needs of your design, that is really just fine. It's good. but it could be that it's not. You might have needed to really, really, really get to that corner. And so AutoCAD gives you a cool tool called Snap. And if I click on it, you see my snap mode is on. And see how my cursor, I don't know why I'm not snapping right now. It should be snapping. Grid snap. There it is. I must be too far away. That's interesting that it wasn't picking that snap. There it goes. I was too far away. See how it's all herky-jerky now? And it goes right to it. So I was just zoomed too far out. Now, what I'm doing to zoom is I'm using the mouse wheel. And wherever my mouse is the centered, it zooms to that spot. If I double click my mouse wheel, click, click, everything shows up. If I hold my mouse wheel down, I can move my view from side to side. Notice it's not moving objects, it's moving where my camera is viewing it from. Okay, so that's grid and snap. I usually work without those because in my work, numbers are never really they never fall on these grids. They always fall somewhere else. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you is how to select an item. So I'm going to zoom in. And if I want to, see how I can kind of hover over it and it sort of shows up. If I click on it when it's doing that, click, you'll see that it highlights and there's little grips. And see how when I get close, it jumps onto the grip. If I hold my mouse down on the grip, I can actually change the size of my circle. That's a really cool thing. And if I hold my mouse down on the middle grip, I can move it around and click. And so if I hit escape, I'm off of it. Now, it could be that I've got a bunch of stuff and maybe it's too hard for me to click on it. If I click on the lower right and move my mouse to the left, see how it highlights as soon as the box gets across it? That's called fence. And if I move my mouse from right to left, anything that touches the outside of that box or is in it is selected when I click. So I click, move, click, and then I can select again. Now, if I go from the left click to the right, it's not working because when I go left to right, it only gets things that are all the way inside the box. So that's how you use your mouse. If you're trying to do this with a trackpad, forget it. I mean, AutoCAD is a mouse-driven product, so you'll need that. Okay, so we've talked about some of these. Here's another one, dynamic input. That's that thing that puts these little numbers up here for me that help me draw without going to the command line. And many people like it. Now, here's a cool one, ortho. Orthogonal means 90 degrees to each other. So when I've got my ortho button on, I can only draw horizontally or vertically. And that can be really good if your design needs things that are horizontal and vertical. So that's the ortho button. Sometimes, though, I'm going to turn those off. Sometimes you want to draw a line at a very specific angle. And so I can choose, and you see how that little green line pops into place? So I've got it set for every 30 degrees right now, and that way I don't have to get exact. See, it'll pop in, and I can just catch on it. My cursor isn't exactly on it, but it knows for me. That's a super, super useful tool. We're not going to do isometric drawings in this class, although you can in your individualized project. If you're doing plumbing or piping or circuit work, you'll want to see that, and I will go over it with you at that time. Here's a really cool one, though. Object snaps allow me to easily find the end. See how I'm going to turn them off for a second. If I want to draw from the end of this to the center of this, I am. That looks pretty good. I maybe got at the end. Well, it's close. It's close. Now, that really won't work if I'm making a product that needs to be machined or made into a 3D product. AutoCAD can't handle that. And a machine tool would get here and then not know what to do to get over to here. So it might crash your machine. So that would not be good. And if I was really trying to get the center over here, oh my gosh, I missed it by a mile. I really didn't get it to the center. Now I got it to this. But what a pain, right? It's like, wow, that was. So you want to be able to use your snaps to pick on things. And then sometimes when you're using from one snap, if I want to find where that horizontal line and that vertical line go, I can use my object tracking to kind of pretend to draw a line one way and then pretend to draw a line the other way. And because I use my tracking, I very quickly get this. So you don't have to know how to use these, but I want you to know how to have the capability of using them. So we're going to work on this. This is a bunch of annotation stuff that is very specific to architecture and civil engineering. So we're going to turn those off. And this annotation scale of the current view should always say 1:1 when you're in the model, but it can be different when we work in here. So we don't really need that one. This one, we are going to work in drafting and annotation. That's where we're going to work. What is this one? Annotation monitor off. I don't even know what those do. And clear screen. Oh my gosh. You don't want that. That would be a disaster. Okay. So now now that you've sort of seen how things work, let's talk about making this look just right. So let's see what the first thing to do is. For me, I like to work on a white background. So I'm going to take an image of my work with a white background. Let me get into the VMware and I'm going to turn my background white. And you have videos on how to do all this. Right click, options, display. I use the light theme colors. Now these are all different ways that AutoCAD shows itself. We're going to be in 2D model space, and I want a uniform background of white. Now some people want their crosshairs to look different, grid line, there's all sorts of stuff. Don't worry about that for now. apply. Okay. And now I've got the light toolbar and a white background. Okay, and what I'd like to do is show that I knew how to do that. So I might have a snip of these two things on my white background. So let me move this over to here. Let me get rid of all my drawing. That's another way. That's more like Adobe. Let me move this over here and bring this up and move it over here. And now I can take a snip of that. So even though I'm in VMware, I can still take a snip from my existing one. And maybe you want to show everything, or maybe you just want to show that. Kind of up to you. And I'm in the wrong one here, obviously. I need to be in my copy. And you can see I already put one in here, but I'll put a different one in here. There we go. So that's another way that you might do this. And watch, if I move it around, it'll actually find center for me. And that's just, you may want to do that or you may not want to do that. There's nothing that says these have to be the same. You could put 2 or 3 different things in here if you wanted to show other things. But that's how you can center it up if you want. And we'll talk about style later on. Today we'll just kind of get to this. So I did the light color theme, 2D model, uniform background, light color theme, 2D. Oh, maybe what I want to do, I'm going to move this out of the way for a moment, is highlight that. So I can put a shape around that and make that transparent and maybe make that bright blue and a little bit thick so people know, okay, there's my color theme. Got it. Oh, that's kind of cool. So that people can know what you're doing. And I can make a copy of that. There we go. So it's up to you what you want to do to show things. I'm just giving you demonstration. You don't have to do that, but the more you can do really high quality presentation work, the more likely that an employer is going to look at this and like it. And I'll tell you, employers do look at these very beginning ones and they look and go, in 1 year, you went from this level of knowledge to this. I like that. You're trainable. You're conscientious. You're good. These initial portfolios are very good to keep and to take with you to a job interview. Okay, so there we go. There's that one. The next one to look at is this set down here, and I'm just going to show you how to do it and see if I get all of them kind of in here. So I can close this up now and close. Oops. Why am I not operating? Did I just get killed from here? That happens to me sometimes. Sorry about that. There we go. Now I'm back up and running. Okay, so the next thing is, how do I set these ones down along the bottom? I'm going to go to the little customization bar, and I can pick and choose all the ones that I want. Okay, so I've got these. I said I didn't need isometric. I do need line weight. I need dynamic. I don't need these ones. I do need that. I don't need annotation monitor, that one, that one. Do I have them all? I might have them all now. Line weights we'll talk about later on, but that's another very important one. So again, I might take a snip or 2 or 3 and arrange them on the page as I wish. Okay, it's up to you how you want to be able to present those. But that's your next one. After that, we've got our drafting and annotation. So that's going to Workspace Setting. Wow, this is really not liking me getting in and out of the VMware. That's a new one on me. Having some issues there. So I won't go dropping back and forth anymore. I'll bring it down here where I can see it. I don't want to keep dropping back and forth. So Workspace Setting is by the little gear down here. Drafting and annotation. You want that one set up, and you can take snips of that. Object snap. Now, I told you that there are lots of places that you can go. Wow, what's going on with my system here? That just isn't great. Well, fortunately, you've got videos of all this. I just clunk this out. Well, that's kind of a booger. I'm just going to go ahead and drop out of this one more time. See if I can get back in and get this reloaded. Looks like it's working now. So object snaps. You want certain ones that we use a lot. So I showed ones that I'd like you to do. Endpoint, midpoint, geometric center, things like that. If you want, this is the quick version. If you do this object snap settings down in the bottom, this little thing comes up and you can get them over here also. Okay, the next one after that are your line weights. Now, this one is really important. Out of the box, and I'm getting, it just bonked on me again. That is about as annoying as I can possibly think of getting here. Okay, so if I right click and do my line weight settings, notice how it's always talking in millimeters when it comes out of the box. In our class, we are going to work in inches because that's more common across all of the things that we use. Architectural, civil engineering, and even a lot of mechanical work is often done in inches rather than millimeters. So you want to change it to the inches. And then it will talk in inches. Okay, let's see what's next. Wow, that's just bugging the tar out of me. Well, I'm just gonna kill this. Sorry about that. You're gonna just need to watch the videos on that because that I'm gonna have to get with our IT people. That's not gonna work out. Not good at all. But you can see on here what the other ones are. There's the lines that I showed you, the object tracking, drawing units, decimal inches. That's different than line weight units. Line weight is how thick do you show lines, and drawing units are when I type the number 1 in AutoCAD, what do I mean? So this one would mean when I type the number 1, it means I mean 1 inch. Okay, so when I type 1 or I make something 1 long, AutoCAD will use 1 inch as its length. So that's important to know later on, but you do have to know how to set it. Okay, so there we go. Those are the Workspace Setup tools that are basic to getting you started. Does anybody have any questions on those? Has anybody got it done yet? Not quite yet. Okay. Well, you have plenty of time. As you can see, you could probably do this portion. I give you a few hours, 2 hours, I think. But to actually do it is not very long. And you can spend the rest of your time making things look cool and playing with your nice presentation and doing a nice job with that. Okay, then let me, I'm going to get back into it one more time. I won't do it. It could be that I'm working within that tab, or it could be that ARC's internet is having issues. That does happen sometime. So it's even remembering me. That's not all that common. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of these. I did a right click of my mouse. Right click makes options appear for you. And so I'm going to go to this options thing again, and we're just going to look at some stuff that you can do. So your window elements, that's what does this window look like? Display resolution, arcs and circle smoothness, and segments in a polyline curve. Okay, so when I draw an arc, it's a mathematical function and it really is a true arc. But the graphics display need to show it somehow. So it's going to pretend it's made out of segments. Okay, and so this is your, not the actual resolution, but it's your display resolution. Now remember I said you could change your crosshair size. This is now a ginormous crosshair. And there are some people that draw that way. And personally, I can't. But you get to make that however big you want. I'm going to apply that. Layout. Those are probably the main things to look at. This one's important. If you have an older version you can have AutoCAD automatically save you back to an older version. And a lot of places do that. Now, they haven't really made any changes since 2018. And from 2013 to 2018, there weren't many changes. So you can set how you're going to do it. And this one's really important. Auto saves. How often do you want to save it? And then it'll go put the auto saves in a certain spot. Okay, so you'll have to look it up over here where it puts your auto saves. But if you're setting this up on your own computer, I think a 10-minute autosave is pretty good, because then if you crash, you only lose 10 minutes worth of work. That is really awesome. So that's a good one to have. Plot and publish. What do you want to plot as? We set it up as Adobe. User preferences are really cool. Okay, so these ones, editors and line weights and default scales, and it's, this stuff is all kind of cool. I'm looking for one more, drafting. So this one's pretty important. You want to have your auto snap markers on, and you want this magnet. That's what kind of makes it pop close to it. So those ones, and we like to have these auto trackers on. 3D modeling. This is, again, when you model, if it breaks it into a surface, how does it do it? That's not too important. Label, selection. I think these are all pretty straightforward. Profiles. Those are all pretty straightforward. So those are just, like I said, you can do so. Look, my tooltip is really big all of a sudden. Go back and fix that. That one was in crosshair size 5. There we go. That's more like what I like. Okay, so that is the basic of your workspace setup. Tomorrow we'll start drawing lines, circles, rectangles, and polygons. We'll deal with the other ones, polylines and arcs and ellipses and things like that, at another time. It's amazing how much you can draw with line, circle, rectangle. You can just do an incredible amount of stuff. All right, any questions? Go ahead and either break in or put it into the chat. Okay, well, thank you for joining in today. I hope that was useful for you, and I'll get this posted in just a little while. I'll stop sharing, and I'll see you later.